This is Snoop Dogg, and most people know him as a rapper, actor, and overall philanthropist of some sort. But most people don't know that there is actually an alternate reality where Snoop Dogg is not a rapper, because instead, he ended up becoming
Jaycen Jennings, well-known, highly respected, top 5 receiver of all time.
So today, we're going to put Jaycen Jennings, or Snoop Dogg, into College Football 25, and we're going to follow him on his road to glory. So coming out of high school, Jaycen was mostly known for this Hail Mary catch he made at the last second to win the state championship. So he was told by everybody that he can make it to the league someday. And he definitely believed it too, considering he was a 5-star recruit and had offers from almost every school in the country. But you see, the one thing about Jaycen 2J's Jennings is that he has always felt like he is self-made. And considering there is a school back at his home in Southern California where he felt like he could make himself into something greater, when it came to Jaycen Jennings' college decision, he decided to sign with USC. Going into the first practice, Jaycen Jennings was dominating the whole day, but the coaches still wanted him to sit behind Zachariah Branch in the number 2 spot. And to say that Jaycen Jennings didn't like that would be a very big understatement, because he would come out in his very first game against LSU on the very first play having some words for the cornerback.
Look here, you red vest wearing Aladdin looking motherfucker. You know who the fuck I am?
And I think he might have scared the cornerback a little bit because he just runs away. And now Jaycen Jennings is wide open to streak downfield for his first touchdown of his college football career on his very first play. And all he had to do was just say some nice words to his opponent. I mean, that's just amazing. But then on the second play of his college football career, it was actually the guy on the other side to go down the field and score a touchdown of his own, as Zachariah Branch scores a long touchdown, making it pretty hard for the coaches to move him down the depth chart. Now, don't get me wrong, in this first half, Jaycen Jennings was doing a lot of good work, but especially throughout the second quarter, it was Zachariah Branch who was stealing the show, because he would get in with his second touchdown of the day with as many receptions. But throughout the second half, Jaycen was really starting to show out as he was getting a lot of catches of his own. Even then, USC did struggle to get into the end zone throughout the second half, up until the fourth quarter, where they ended up making a nice play as the quarterback finds a man open in the corner of the end zone, making this a 2-possession ball game and allowing USC to eventually escape this game with a 31-24 victory, as Jaycen Jennings goes on to lead the way with 10 receptions and 151 yards. A shout out to Branch for those 2 TDs. Now, Jaycen was already out here getting NIL deals, but he grew up from nothing, so he'll always take what he can get. But one thing that he was definitely trying to get was busy going into his next game against Utah State. And immediately it seemed like he was just doing what he wanted, because he would actually go up and say, "Wang," snagging this ball out the air and giving his team 1st and goal. And then on this 3rd and goal, he just crosses the face of the DB and gets into the end zone for the first points of the game for USC, as Jaycen 2J's Jennings was looking to have a big impact on this game. On the next drive, though, when he comes out, his quarterback is hit while he throws, and he ends up throwing an interception. On top of that, they failed to convert this 3rd down, so the next time they're out on the field, they're down by 2 possessions with 2 minutes to go before half. But Jaycen Jennings was out there serving up some extra crispy routes with some barbecue sauce on the side, as he eventually gets in for his 2nd touchdown of the game before half, cutting the lead down to 1 possession. Unfortunately, right before half, there must be some miscommunication between him and his quarterback, because he ends up throwing a pick, meaning that after halftime, USC was back down 2 possessions and had to fight to get back in this game. But Zachariah Branch was definitely making it easier for everybody as he goes in for another touchdown on the season, and quite honestly surprising Jaycen Jennings as to how good he really was. But on the next possession in the 3rd quarter, there was a play where Jaycen was just running his route, and somehow another receiver runs into him, and it causes the ball to go flying in the air and get picked off. But Jaycen forgot he was mic'd up this game, so the audio catches him saying some stuff after the play.
Bitch ass, punk ass, bitch.
But now in the 4th quarter, it was really time to lock in. And it seemed like everybody knew that, including Zachariah Branch, who comes up with another big play on the day. And on the very next play, it was the other star wide receiver, Jaycen Jennings, who hit the cornerback with a little hey, hey, before getting himself open and catching a touchdown that would ultimately go on to be the game winner, as USC would go on to finish this game out 28-27, with Jaycen Jennings going on to win player of the game with 14 receptions, 164 yards, and 3 touchdowns. On top of that, he earned himself National Offensive Player of the Week. Not really getting any love from the Heisman voters quite yet, but it doesn't really seem like that matters right now, because Zachariah Branch actually texted Jaycen, telling him that he feels like he's taken away his shine. And 2J's had something to say about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you realize that every morning when you come to school, your breath smells like cigarettes, booty, and donuts?
And although these two superstars weren't really getting along right now, they were going to have to put their differences aside, as they were heading into their biggest game of the season so far against the number 10th ranked team in the country, the Michigan Wolverines. Now on the opening drive of this game, it wasn't really working out so well for USC, but they would immediately get the ball back with great field position due to their defense, and somehow Jaycen Jennings is able to get over the top of Will Johnson here and score a touchdown for the first points of the game for USC. You know, throughout this first half, Jaycen was actually having his way with Will Johnson, no diddy, as he was eventually able to get over the top of him once again for another touchdown to close out the second quarter, and give his team plenty of momentum going into the second half. That was ultimately taken right away from Will Johnson, as he comes up with an interception and just runs past the entire offense, gliding into the end zone for a pick six.
Michigan. How about that D coming?
And at this point, these two were in a battle. And it was a battle that Jaycen 2J's Jennings intended on winning, as he would break open for another big catch downfield and find himself streaking all the way towards the end zone for another touchdown on his day, helping to extend USC's lead back to 2 possessions. But with a little over 2 minutes left, instead of running out the clock, USC decides to pass to Jaycen Jennings, and it winds up in an interception from Will Johnson once again. That also winds up in some points for Michigan. But it was quite literally like deja vu, because Will Johnson eventually comes up with another interception. This time this pick would put his team in position to go ahead in this game, as with exactly a minute left, Michigan is now up by 7 points. Luckily, Zachariah Branch was there to save the day, as he breaks open for his own big play, where he comes up huge with a touchdown to tie this game up back at 31, ultimately sending this game into overtime, where Michigan and USC would both be held to a field goal on their opening possessions. Luckily, on their next possession, USC would go on to score a touchdown, with Zachariah Branch being the reason why, and Jaycen Jennings being the reason for the 2-point conversion that would allow USC to go ahead and escape this game 42-40. With Jaycen Jennings having an excellent performance with 247 yards and 3 touchdowns. And because of that, he would go on to win National Offensive Player of the Week. So Jaycen decided he was going to go out and celebrate. But he doesn't really like to celebrate by partying. He'd rather just go out for a walk smoking some of that Mary Jane.
You can't smoke in here, young man.
Hey, don't worry about it, baby. I got a medical condition.
What condition is that?
I got an addiction. I'm addicted to Granny Punani.
Really?
Yeah.
So after clapping somebody's grandma's cheeks to smithereens, Jaycen 2J's Jennings was ready to get into his next game against Wisconsin. To start this game off, Jaycen was making plays out the gate, coming up with a big play over the top to pick up some huge yardage on USC's opening possession. So Jaycen had a feeling that today was going to be a big day. But that feeling immediately went away after this linebacker came up with a pick to end their opening drive. And then Miller Moss would go on to throw another pick in the first quarter, but this one would actually go all the way to the crib for a pick 6. But you see, it was all good though, because now down by 14, USC would throw another pick to Wisconsin. And the quarterback would bring it all the way down to the opposing red zone, so that after halftime it was 21-0, and USC was becoming desperate for shots. Taking another one here to 2J's, where the safety would come up with a pick, taking another possession away from USC. And now by the fourth quarter, this game was 31-0. And USC couldn't really do anything other than try to truck it deep, but Miller Moss can never get the ball over the DB, and he comes up with another interception, pretty much putting this game away. And once again, the audio team picks up some sound off of Jaycen Jennings' microphone.
This shit is depressing, man.
Wisconsin would go on to win this game 37-0, with Jaycen Jennings being held to 66 yards and 0 touchdowns. And unfortunately for Jaycen, his name would be brought up a lot in the media as far as who's to blame for this team's loss.
The notion that people are idolizing Jaycen 2J's Jennings, it's ridiculous.
And he went out there and he didn't deliver, and he hadn't delivered the whole game.
Why don't you spend more time on the grass than smoking it?
Now all Jaycen could do was just put his head down and keep working, because he knew he still had a lot of games left to play, including his next one against Minnesota. Where out the gate, USC is picking up where they left off by throwing another turnover to start this game. and put them down by 7 points towards the end of the first quarter. 2J's was really starting to get back into a rhythm of things against this Minnesota secondary, as he was continuously routing them up and eventually broke open for a touchdown on the zig route to tie the game up at 7 at the end of the first. And on the very next possession, actually the very next play, Jaycen runs the go route and there was some confusion in the secondary that allows him to break open for a wide open catch. And he just streaks down the field for 30 or so yards before falling into the end zone for a touchdown, taking the lead for USC. But that wasn't even it before half, because Jaycen would once again burn past this DB and find himself streaking all the way down the field towards the end zone for another touchdown before halftime. And it continued as Jennings was able to get off the press once again, find himself open downfield, and pick up a big chunk of yardage for his team. And with under 30 seconds left to go before halftime, it was actually Zachariah Branch who comes up with a big play in the end zone to extend the lead for USC. And after halftime, Jaycen just realizes that this defensive back unit is terrible, as they continuously leave him open, and he's eventually able to get in the end zone for another touchdown on the day, this one to put it away, as USC goes on to win 41-20, mostly on the back of Jaycen Jennings' 17 receptions for 385 yards and 4 touchdowns. You know, throughout the country, Jaycen was actually starting to gain a lot of recognition. So much so that Wheaties had actually reached out to him to be on the cover of their next box. And of course, Jaycen 2J's Jennings was not going to give up the opportunity to be on the cover of Wheaties. I mean, that is a milestone for every great athlete. But he was looking forward to eventually earning something greater than just being on the cover of cereal. He just had to keep things rolling into their next game against Penn State. This game started off okay for USC, as they were unable to pick up a third down towards the end of their drive, but they could make a field goal to make it a 3-point game. Unfortunately, Miller Moss and Jaycen Jennings were not on the same page, resulting in an interception that got 3 points on the board for Penn State. And those struggles seem to continue as Miller Moss goes on to throw another pick into double coverage, this time eventually leading to a touchdown for Penn State as they take the lead in this game. That wouldn't last too long though, because with 10 seconds left before halftime, Jaycen Jennings would go on to make an incredible play by getting behind the entire defense and streaking his way all the way into the end zone for a touchdown right before halftime, tying this game up at 10, where after halftime, it was now time for Zachariah Branch to step up and start making plays of his own, as the other superstar receiver gets into the end zone for a touchdown to take the lead for USC. And after Jaycen Jennings finds a way to eventually come up with this crazy catch on third down, where after review it was determined he got a foot down in bounds, USC could continue putting points on the board with the help of Jaycen getting in the end zone for another touchdown, helping to eventually put this game away 27-21. With 2J's Jennings winning player of the game with 11 receptions, over 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now at this point in the season, it was kind of crazy to think about it, but as a freshman, Jaycen was already leading the country in yards, and was working hard to maintain and even build upon his spot at the top. He went into a game against Maryland when he ran a nice route at the start of the game and was able to get himself open before finding himself running down the sideline past all of the defenders for a touchdown within the first minute of this game. And it was beginning to feel like he was hitting his stride as one of the top receivers in the country, as it seems like every week he was always coming up with some crazy play or making some crazy catch to get his team downfield. But he had to admit that Zachariah Branch was making it a little bit easier for him, as he was taking away some of the attention from the DBs, allowing Jaycen to find a way to get open often, a lot of times for touchdowns. But it never really seemed to stop Zachariah from doing his own thing, as he was consistently making plays almost every single game too. And by the end of this game against Maryland, Zachariah Branch and Jaycen Jennings were definitely establishing themselves as one of the top wide receiver duos in all of the nation, as USC would go on to win this game 48-27. While Jaycen Jennings went for 11 receptions, 392 yards, and 4 touchdowns. But not to mention Zachariah had over 100 yards and 2 TDs of his own. What the thing is about being in the spotlight now is that Jaycen always has people holding him to a different standard. Because after the game, he had somebody message him saying,
"Hey man, is there a reason why you need to smoke weed in public? I mean, come on, man. Look at LeBron James at Ohio State. He's an excellent role model, and he even helps a lot of poor kids."
Fuck LeBron James and fuck poor kids.
Nah, you see, Jaycen wasn't trying to hear none of that. All he wanted to do was just play some football and be great. And he was looking forward to continuing to be great in his next game against Rutgers, where on the opening drive, Jaycen Jennings was not able to score a touchdown, but his team was able to find a way to get in the end zone with him off the field. When he was back on the field though, he was absolutely lighting these boys up, routing Rutgers up all over the field as they could not cover him once he broke back to the outside, finding himself getting into the end zone for his first points of the game to extend USC's lead to 11 in the second quarter. But after Rutgers gets back-to-back possessions before halftime, USC comes out in the third quarter down by 2 and are looking to work back downfield to take that lead back. But Zachariah Branch comes up with a big play to not only get his team back downfield, but ultimately take the lead back in this game. But then out of nowhere, it literally became the Zachariah Branch show, as he would go on to score multiple touchdowns throughout the second half, putting together an incredible performance where Jaycen Jennings didn't really have to do anything, and could actually just sit back and watch his co-star shine for once. Because at this point, Zachariah Branch was probably one of the only guys that he liked on the team. But USC would go on to win this game 35-23. With Zachariah Branch having a Randy Moss stat line with 3 receptions and 3 touchdowns over 140 yards, all while Jaycen had 14 receptions for 181 yards. And when asked about who's to credit for their success lately, as much as he liked Zachariah, he knew that this team would be nowhere without him. And he made sure to let the reporters know that, but once again, there were others who thought differently.
I can't believe anyone could think that 2J's is a top 5 wide receiver. I know porn stars that have received more than him. I want to see actual skills.
You know, in a way, Jaycen Jennings kind of liked when people talked crazy about him, because it gave him an incentive to work harder and be better. And he came out the gate against the University of Washington looking to do exactly that, catching his ball on a post over the middle before breaking off a tackle and picking up a nice gain. Unfortunately, this drive would ultimately stall out, but once again, it was this wide receiver duo coming up with big plays as Zachariah Branch finds himself going into the end zone for a touchdown to start this game off. And almost exactly in the middle of this game, it was Jaycen Jennings who would find himself around the DB and open in his zone before getting all the way down the field in the end zone for another touchdown, making this a 14-point game. And at this point, it's pretty clear that Washington is struggling, but their struggles will definitely continue, as Jaycen Jennings would continue to find himself wide open for big catches going for first down, even getting himself in the end zone for his second touchdown in the third quarter on this whip route, extending this lead to 21. And when you have the number 1 wide receiver duo in the country, it's got to be hard not to get them both involved, as Zachariah Branch goes in for his second touchdown of the day, this one to close the game out, as 5th-ranked USC goes on to take down Washington 28-0. Mostly on the back of Jaycen Jennings' 11 receptions for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. But also can't forget Branch's 100 yards with 2 touchdowns himself. But now that Jaycen Jennings has reached superstar status, he has random girls hitting him up all the time now, and he deals with them all differently in his own way.
Hello. Yeah, bitch. Where's my money, bitch? No, bitch. Hi, bitch. Bye, bitch. And in case you didn't get it, let me text it to you, bitch.
As of right now, Jaycen wasn't worried about no woman. He was just worried about taking on fake-ass Patrick Mahomes in Nebraska. And on the opening possession on third down, he was able to get himself past double coverage and run into the end zone for a touchdown, taking the early lead for USC in this game. And after Zachariah Branch makes an incredible catch to bring USC inside goal-to-goal territory, the quarterback is able to find a man open the middle to get them in the end zone for a touchdown, extending the lead to 14. And it just continued as it seemed like it was another game where Jaycen could sit back and watch his teammates make play after play and get themselves in the end zone multiple times to extend this lead further. And after Jaycen gets himself over the top of this defense in the third quarter and catches this ball for a deep touchdown, that would pretty much put this game away, especially as Nebraska continuously fails to score, as USC would go on to win 42-3. And while Jaycen Jennings had another incredible game, it was really the entire USC wide receiver core who made some great plays throughout the game. But in the end, they can really all thank
Bitch-ass, punk-ass,
fake-ass Patrick Mahomes for playing poorly and putting up no touchdowns. But there was a small chance that the next quarterback will play that bad going into their next game, as USC was set to face off against an in-state rival, UCLA. Now this was a game where Jaycen Jennings was having some conflicting thoughts, because out the gate it was Zachariah Branch who was making a play to get himself all the way down the field across the goal line for a touchdown, putting the first points up on the board. But he was not even close to done yet, because he would go on to score another touchdown in the first quarter, extending the lead for USC. But that was only before he would come out immediately on the first play of the second quarter and break free for his third touchdown within the first 6 minutes of the game. And Jaycen was really happy for him, But at this point, he didn't really have a lot of opportunities as he only had one reception for 7 yards. So he decided to start making an impact as he eventually broke free past the DB and made the catch up the sideline before running past the safety and getting himself all the way down the field for a touchdown as he finally makes his mark on this game. But still, Zachariah Branch was not finished as he finds a way to break free once again for another touchdown. And Jaycen Jennings started to get a little jealous of all these yards he was racking up. So he took it upon himself to get in for his second touchdown before the end of the third quarter. But that would be enough to help put this game away as USC would go on to win this game 66-23. With Zachariah Branch going for 429 yards and 5 touchdowns, while Jaycen went for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns. But after finding out that Zachariah Branch actually broke the all-time USC record for most yards in a game, Jaycen just had to chalk it up to them playing a bad team. But he loved that he and Zachariah were now officially the 2 leading receivers in the entire country, and they were looking to keep up that momentum as they were set to face off against Notre Dame. But Jaycen, still feeling jealous from the previous game, is looking to get some more targets. Unfortunately, him calling for the ball would result in an interception, giving the ball away on their first possession of the game. But things would continue in the opposite direction of the previous game for Zachariah Branch, because for Jaycen Jennings, it felt like every time he was calling for the ball, he was causing an interception. He just had to be extremely grateful that the Notre Dame offense was not able to produce anything. And in the second quarter, USC was finally starting to get things going as they were picking up first downs, and Jaycen Jennings was making a big impact by getting himself in the end zone for the first touchdown of the game for USC. But then the sparks were beginning to fly as on a play right before half, Jaycen springs past the defender and is able to find himself over the top and behind the entire defense before going into the end zone for a touchdown, extending their lead to 2 possessions. And the entire USC offense was playing extremely well throughout the second half, setting up opportunities for Jaycen Jennings to eventually get himself in the end zone for another touchdown and putting some real pressure on Notre Dame. But soon after, Zachariah Branch would take all that pressure off, as Notre Dame pretty much knew they would lose because Zachariah Branch goes in for another touchdown on his season, and this one to close this game out, with USC winning this rivalry 31-17, while Jaycen Jennings led the way with 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, earning himself National Offensive Player of the Week. And with the regular season now at a close, Jaycen Jennings is still working hard to be better, especially since he's heading back into another Big Ten rivalry, as he and the USC Trojans are set to face off once again against the Michigan Wolverines. Now, USC did not start this game off well because Miller Moss throws another interception on his season to start this game off. And not only is Michigan full-on celebrating on the field already, but they also take a 7-point lead. On top of that, Miller Moss throws another interception after Jaycen calls for this ball, but this time the interception goes all the way back to the crib for a pick 6 to make it a 14-point lead. So the offensive coordinator tries to get the ball to Jaycen in other ways, but it doesn't really seem to be working as well as they think. Eventually, they just decide to take a shot up deep to Jaycen, and even though this one is hanging in the air for a little bit, Jaycen is looking to come down with this ball as he scores the first points of the game for USC. And Jaycen was looking to call for the ball some more so he could try to keep that momentum going for his team. And it definitely seemed to be working as he was helping to work their way downfield, up until Miller Moss eventually threw another interception, and then a 4th interception, and then a 5th interception, before it finally came down to the 4th quarter with USC down 41-7. And Jaycen Jennings was finally getting into the end zone for another touchdown in a game that was already over, because USC would go on to lose this game 14-41. And although 2Js had a great game, it's hard to win when your quarterback is throwing 5 picks. On the bright side, Jaycen would go on to win National Offensive Player of the Week. And since it's the end of the year, he's actually surprised to find out that he wins Player of the Year. But I guess he wasn't really that surprised, because he always knew that he was the best player in the country and still had a lot of room to be better. So he wasn't shocked to find out that he would then go on to win the Heisman Trophy after putting up almost 2,800 yards and 29 touchdowns. Now, Jaycen Jennings would obviously go on to win a bunch of other awards, and at this point he's feeling pretty proud of his accomplishments. So when Big Ten reporters asked him at the ceremony if he wanted to thank his teammates, well, he had something to say about that.
Help me? Shit, ain't nobody help me. I'm Jaycen Jennings. I don't owe nobody shit. I'm self-made.
But Jaycen knew the best way to make himself into something great was to go out there and win a championship. And for him, it all started here as he was set to face off against Missouri. And immediately, Jaycen is cooking his defense by getting past the cornerback and catching this ball in the zone before running past everybody and running himself into the end zone for a touchdown to start this game off, taking the 7-point lead and bringing all the momentum towards USC. Before Jaycen goes out there and runs this deep post, And the cornerback comes up and makes an incredible play on the ball, picking it off and taking away a possession from Missouri. And this would continue to happen as once again on multiple plays, on multiple drives, this quarterback is throwing interceptions that result in more and more points for Missouri. So that by halftime, USC is now down by 7 and is driving downfield looking to tie the game up. They would end up catching a break as they would eventually score that touchdown. But on top of that, the defense would give them the ball back with great field position and an opportunity to take the lead, which they would eventually take as Zachariah Branch would get into the end zone for a touchdown, allowing USC to take control in this game. And the control would stay in their hands as Zachariah Branch would once again break free for another touchdown, this time ultimately putting this game away, as USC would go on to win this game 31-17, with Jaycen Jennings winning player of the game with 200 yards and 1 touchdown. Now looking at this bracket, Jaycen knows he has a tough schedule ahead of him, especially if he can get past NC State. And he really didn't feel too worried about them as he would go on to break open on one of the first plays of the game, catching the ball on his post route before gliding his way all the way to the end zone for a touchdown, putting up the first points of the game for USC. And this was a game where Jaycen was really focused on taking advantage of every opportunity he could. I mean, he literally spun out half the defense on this play. But it doesn't feel like he'll ever learn that sometimes he asks for too many opportunities, because oftentimes throwing his way results in picks. But Jaycen truly felt like he was the best player on the field at all times, and he should always have the ball in his hands. And he was kind of proving that to be true as he takes this pop pass and gets busy with it before going up the sideline and eventually going out of bounds inside the opposing red zone territory. That would all kind of mean nothing though, because the quarterback would throw another interception on his season, taking away a scoring opportunity. But like he has all season, Jaycen Jennings makes another play right before half, as he's able to fly by everybody and find himself racing down the sideline all the way towards the end zone for another touchdown on the game, tying it up before halftime. And after halftime, USC started with excellent field position, giving Jaycen Jennings an opportunity to go past this DB and get himself in the end zone again to take the lead for USC, meaning they're only a quarter and some change away from going to the next round of the playoffs. And it seemed like Zachariah Branch was liking the idea of going to the next round too, because now he was making an impact by bringing himself across the goal line for a touchdown. And with this game starting to get out of reach, Jaycen Jennings on this first to goal comes out and runs a nice route before scoring another touchdown on the day, effectively ending this game and sending USC to the next round of the playoffs, as USC would go on to win 38-20, with Jaycen Jennings winning player of the game with 19 receptions, 414 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And he was doing his best to try to match that total that Zachariah Branch put up earlier in the season. And although he didn't quite match it, he was still working hard to eventually do it one day. But for now, he was really just trying to take this playoffs one game at a time, especially since they were about to face off against their toughest opponent all season, as the USC Trojans were set to face off against the Georgia Bulldogs. Now out the gate on one of the first plays of the game, Jaycen is able to find himself over the top of the defense and running his team into the end zone for a touchdown, taking the lead early on in this game. But that lead would go on to be unfortunately super short-lived, because not only would Georgia go on to score a touchdown of their own on offense, but their defense would come out and get a pick and take this one all the way back to the crib as they go on to put up another touchdown on defense, taking the lead in this game, and USC is already feeling some pressure. But to add to that pressure, Miller Moss is out there throwing another interception, and this game is still in the first quarter. Shoot, it was all good to Jaycen though, because he felt like all he had to do was just throw it up to him and they would be fine. Unfortunately, that was not the case, because this Georgia defense comes up with another pick. But this time it really was all good though, as Zachariah Branch would break free for another touchdown on his season, running past the entire defense to help make this a 7-point game before he actually comes right back out and does it again to help bring this game to a 21-21 tie ball game heading into the second half. And after an exchange of field goals, this game is really starting to get down to crunch time. And that seems like it might be the best time for Jaycen Jennings, because he finds his way open and is running down the sideline for another touchdown on the game, this time to take the lead before entering into the fourth quarter. And at this point, USC is feeling real good about where they're at before Miller Moss throws another interception inside their own red zone. And since Georgia is Georgia, they definitely capitalized on that. But nobody would expect that Georgia would also capitalize on another interception, this one going for yet another pick 6 to extend the lead to 7 points for Georgia. And at this point, things are getting kind of scary, because Jaycen's just hoping he doesn't throw another pick. And after Georgia goes up by 10 in this game, Jaycen knows that he really needs to lock in now. So he comes out here and runs his route, splitting the safeties, and catches the ball in the middle of the field before running his way towards the end zone, avoiding the ref on his way, and scoring a touchdown to make this a 3-point game with under 2 minutes left. And luckily, USC's defense comes up with a big stop to allow the offense to get down the field and potentially tie the game and or win it. Jaycen Jennings was doing everything he could to get his team in scoring position before making his last catch on this play and coming off the field to allow his team to kick a game-tying field goal. Except, they would not hit the field goal, and Jaycen Jennings and the USC Trojans would go on to lose this game 38-41, ending their season as Georgia sends them home for the winter. Miller Moss would go on to break his interception record, so that was good for him. But Jaycen Jennings actually did have a really good game along with Zachariah Branch. It was actually a great game to close out the season for this amazing duo. As far as the season goes, Jaycen Jennings had almost 3,700 yards and 37 touchdowns, along with Zachariah Branch going for almost 1,700 yards and 25 touchdowns. And as great as Zachariah Branch was, Jaycen Jennings would go on to be USC's greatest receiver ever, as he broke their career yards record within his first year, along with multiple other season and game records that he and Zachariah Branch both broke. And after the game, he had some reporters ask him questions about how he felt about the season.
Fuck the scoreboard. Fuck the cheap-ass plastic trophy. Fuck the bitch-ass, punk-ass bitches that think they better than you.
Now, Georgia would go on to eventually win this national championship over UCF. And as much as he loved his time with USC, Jaycen Jennings knew it was time for him to transfer. It was just a matter of time before he made his decision. So this was the story of Jaycen Jennings, aka Snoop Dogg. And if you want to see more of Jaycen Jennings, be sure to get this video to 1,000 likes and subscribe to the channel down below. And also be sure to comment down below who else you guys want to see next. And definitely don't forget to check out some of these other stories before the next one drops. If you got to this point in the video, just know that I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. I hope all of your college football and NFL teams win this weekend. And other than that, I'm going to catch you guys next time.